Hello and welcome wherever you are to our lunchtime live stream. Today, Eric Walker shows us the ash of Yggdrasil in the night sky, and we have a separate video to watch at any time with some foraging food from Gilly Basan in the Cairngorms. But first, we have some physics. Here is an extract from a new book. Here's the book, and here's the extract. Light is the fastest thing in the universe. Nothing else travels quite like light does. No matter the speed of the thing emitting the light, and no matter the speed of the observer, the speed of light is always exactly the same. You can never get any closer, nor any further away from light. It always outstrips us by exactly the same interval, like a horizon that takes one step back for every one that we take towards it. Nothing with mass can match light's speed, and because of its speed, light is everywhere, all the time. As Einstein explained, light, traveling at such blinding speed, collapses time, and everything is here and now, always. Well, that's physics of depth and insight and understanding, and beautifully written. And the author is an artist living in Orkney. Her name is Samantha Clark, and she joins us now. Good afternoon.
Hello, Howie. Nice to speak to you.
And fascinating to read your book. And the first question I'd like to ask is, how does it come that an artist is writing about physics, and I should add, writing so beautifully?
Yeah, how indeed. It surprised even me. But I suppose as an artist, I was always interested in light and interested in vision and also the act of observation. So I was looking at and thinking about a lot of those ideas, and I became really interested in this idea of the subtle ether, which was a historical hypothesis, I guess, for what might fill empty space. And I really felt that it was also a kind of a way of understanding our need to understand, if you know what I mean. I was like a sort of reaching towards understanding something that's always just slightly beyond you. And it became a kind of metaphorical way for me to understand other aspects of my life that were eluding my understanding. So I'd been reading and thinking about physics as a lay person for a long time.
And the background to that, the subtitle of the book is A Memoir of Art, Family and Mental Health. And the background was family events.
Yes, that's right. Because in fact, I had started off writing what began as actually a very sort of cerebral book. I have an interest in philosophy as well. And I was interested in exploring that kind of relationship between philosophy and what used to be called natural philosophy, which of course we call physics now. And I'd started working on that, but at that point, my parents, who were quite frail and elderly at that point, my father died, and then about 18 months later, my mother died. So I was clearing out the family home. And that became another kind of space that prompted a lot of reflection on family relationships. My mother had suffered from mental illness from when I was quite small. So there were a lot of silences, things that were left unspoken, things that I didn't really ever know about or understand because I was quite small when things started to happen in our family. So this idea that the visible spectrum is just this tiny little slice of the electromagnetic spectrum, and then there's all this other stuff that we can't perceive directly, became a way for me to think about how so much of our human relationships we connect in just this small surface of things, but there's this whole hinterland of other people that we never really know or understand. So yeah, that's how the two ended up being woven through together in the book.
It's a real interweaving because, for instance, you write about the ether when you're talking about the space, the feeling of space in your house. You talk about dark matter when you talk about the gravitational pull, the pull back towards your parents and your childhood. The two, the physics and the personal feelings, are brought together so well.
Yeah, I think because I come to physics as a complete layperson, just with an interest in the natural world, in those big questions that physics explores, those same big questions as philosophy explores, like what is the nature of time, what's the nature of space, what's the relationship between the observer and the thing observed, and so on. So I've been really thinking about these for quite a long time. Yeah, so come back to the question, because I was
It
going
was the
off
way, it
off into
was the,
space there.
yes, it was the interweaving of the concepts in physics with the abstract, the personal circumstances.
Yeah, so but yeah, the physics for me was always infused with a sense of wonder. And that for me became also a way to approach it through a more of a poetic way of understanding. I was really interested in reading a poet, Mark Doty, an American poet, D-O-T-Y, Mark Doty, had written this beautiful essay about metaphor and how our metaphors move ahead of us into the world. They're a kind of intelligence. They're a way that we can understand things or approach things that are perhaps too charged emotionally or too subtle for us to approach directly. And for me, thinking about ideas like dark matter became like a metaphorical way of understanding, for example, how all the forgotten days of the past shape me, even though I can't remember them consciously anymore, but they make me what I am right now. In a similar way to the way that dark matter, although we can't perceive it directly, actually shapes visible matter through its gravitational pull.
Now, what did publishers or literary agents say when they found a book that was apparently on the surface about personal loss, but had physics deeply woven into it?
I was lucky that another writer very generously introduced me to her agent, who loved the book straight away. But it did have a bit of a bumpy ride through publishers because a lot of them just didn't quite know what to do with it. And in fact, I did get an offer to rewrite it and take all the science out of it. And I just said, that's a different book. And you need a different author to write that book. So I said no. So yeah, I think it puzzled a few publishers.
And just briefly, did the physics help to make sense? The book's called The Clearing. Did it help with a kind of, not while the clearing of the house was going on, did it help with a kind of clearing of the mind?
Yes, I think it did because again, I had conversations with the publisher about this. My take on it was that always opening up and exploring the bigger situation, the big questions of the universe, all your personal worries just kind of fall off you, really, when you realize how tiny and insignificant we are. So there was always that movement between the closing down and the looking inwards and backwards also at family relationships, and then the opening it up and this sense of wonder at the strangeness of the universe and what they call the laws of physics. For me, they're infused with a kind of wonder, partly because I don't have the maths, so I can't understand them, as a physicist would.
Well, it's a wonderful book, and I think authors of physics textbooks will be looking for this with quotations. It introduces concepts so beautifully. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And for viewers, the name of the book is The Clearing. The author is Samantha Clark, and it's highly recommended.
Thank you, Harry.
Eric Walker now is joining us in the night sky, and it's the Ash of Yggdrasil.
Well, good afternoon, Howie. It's good to be back again today. Welcome to another short session for absolute beginners. This observing can be done with just the naked eye, but today you need to find a place that has a dark and clear skies as you can possibly get, which is why I'm viewing virtually from North Ronaldsay at 10 p.m. tonight. We have such near perfect dark skies up here. The Ash of Yggdrasil is the Old Norse mythological legend describing the tree that supports the universe, We know that in our culture as the Milky Way. Next slide. The Milky Way is at its best right now in the Northern Hemisphere. The skies are getting dark much earlier each night, and the Milky Way stretches from horizon to horizon. Next slide. And it's directly overhead. The center of the grid on this sky map is right above your head. Next slide. If you turn to face roughly east and look from the northeast and upwards to above your head, you'll see and identify some of the constellations I have talked about in previous lunchtime sessions. Next slide. Look for the bright star Capella in its constellation Auriga just above the northeast horizon. Travel up and along to the upside down Y of Perseus and the W of Cassiopeia. Then over and through the constellation of Cygnus the Swan. These constellations are all in the path of the Milky Way. You can use the constellations to find the Milky Way, or you can use the Milky Way to find the constellations. You are looking through one of the spiral arms in our own galaxy. Next slide. If you move round to face south and keep looking above you and down towards the southwest horizon, next and last slide, you'll see the asterism you should be very familiar with now, the summer triangle. Extend your view through the constellations Cygnus, Lyra, and Aquila the Eagle, and down to the horizon. The Milky Way is simply amazing in this region. Dense milky clouds, massive thin hazy areas, dark and dense pockets and patches. Take a pair of binoculars and spend your time scanning the whole Milky Way region. You'll come across some wondrous sights, intricate star patterns, open and dense clusters of stars. Stars of different colours ranging from blue through white, through yellow to red. Jewels in the sky. This is a region that I, as an astrophotographer, spend so much time looking for beautiful objects and photographing them. This is the area which got me completely hooked on astronomy. Do enjoy trying to find and soak in the delights of the ash of Yggdrasil. More from me tomorrow. Howie.
We look forward to welcoming you back tomorrow, Eric. And in the meantime, I should say, both Eric and Samantha will be joining us around the tables in the Peedie Kirk lunch that's following in a couple of minutes from now. There are some spaces still left, so if you'd like to join, everyone will be most welcome. All that remains for me to do is to thank the technical team for operating everything so apparently effortlessly, to Samantha and to Eric for some fascinating insights, and to you, the audience, for enjoying making your company available for us to enjoy. So one more thing. At 2 o'clock today, we switch mood to genetics. We're going to have 2 talks, one at 2 o'clock and one at 3:30, on research on genetics and population, and an exciting project, the Viking 2 Genes Project. Well, that's at 2 o'clock. And in the meantime, all I'd say is thank you and goodbye.